right, hello and welcome back to In the Art Scene podcast. And today we're having a special guest. Her name is Diana Adams, and I will give her a chance to introduce herself properly. Diana is an amazing potter, and we are recording on February 2nd, which is kind of significant because yesterday was not only her own birthday, it was also a birthday of her business, the Sample HAUS. And we are at the beginning of Black History Month, which is also a very significant part of Diana's story. I hope we're going to touch on that. All right. Well, can you say hi to our listeners and introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah. Hi. And thank you so much for having me. This is so fun. My name is Diana Adams, the owner of Sample HAUS. What do? We do so much stuff now. So Sample HAUS is pretty much a place where you can get mainly focusing on like home decor, mostly pottery. I am a potter, but it didn't all start there. I have a crazy story of how it got to this point, but the beginning stages of Sample HAUS started with upcycling and recycling fabric samples from the interior design industry. Which is where the name kind of comes from, Sample HAUS. I was always like collecting these fabric samples. We use fabric samples in the interior design world when they're like trying to scheme out their space. Like if you're gonna reupholster, your chair or your sofa curtains, you have all of these little fabric samples that you use. So when something goes out of stock or discontinued or whatnot, a lot of times they end up cleaning out those bins of fabric and throwing it in the trash. And, if you can imagine one firm doing it, so all the firms are doing it, all the showrooms. So there's tons and tons of fabric waste in the trash. So that was my initial movement with Sample HAUS.
I got to stop you here and ask you questions because I kind of know what you're talking about because I have listened to you on other podcasts.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit familiar with the story, but to bring our listeners up to date, what the heck do fabric samples have to do with the pottery? Can you start a little bit from the beginning?
I know. It's crazy. Because it started one way and then it kind of I flipped the script. So so I don't know. Do you want me to start? It's a process, like with everything. Everything has a story, a background story.
And that's what we're here for. Start from wherever you are comfortable with. I know that you went to art school and you were not intended to be a potter. So the whole journey and the whole pivot into the pottery and what you have been doing before you started the Sample HAUS. Share it with us.
Yeah. Okay. So it all started back in my undergrad year. So I'll take you back to 2005. So I majored in art studio. So I always knew as a child that I wanted to be an artist. Like I was always drawing and sketching stuff and, showing my mom, like, look what I made. She's like, okay, that's good. Like, that's good. But, when high school came around, like, okay, like, what are you really going to do? Like to make money, So
a proper job in air quotes. Yeah.
Right. So I was always like, okay, like I have this talent, but I can't use it. So I have to pick this major. So I ended up starting off in biology, to believe it or not.
That's interesting.
I like animals. I know, very, very weird, very interesting. But I'm like, okay, like I like animals. What about biology? I don't know. Anyway, so I took like 2 years of that. And I think once like biochem hit, I was like, okay, no, this isn't for me. But I just remember when I was in school, I was always walking through the art department, to my car and just smelling like turpentine and sawdust and seeing people throwing on the clay or messing with clay. And I'm like, oh my God, this is what I really want to do. So I did a switch. I switched to art studio, didn't care what anybody else thought. And pottery was an elective. So I didn't even think about doing pottery. I thought I was going to be a painter. So pottery was just an elective just to get some units. And I ended up falling in love with it. So
what did your mom say?
My mom, she was just like, okay, like, okay, you're an adult. I can't tell you like what to do, but Yeah, I don't even remember what she said because it didn't matter to me at the point. At that point, I have no idea what she said. Um, but I still didn't know what I was gonna do. I just knew I had to switch majors. That's all I knew. But yeah, so I switched majors, did the whole pottery thing, and then once I graduated, I was like, oh shit, like I need to make money. Like so I got into retail. Like I was doing retail for like 12 years. So it
And
was
you graduated as a painter.
yeah, I graduated with my art degree. So that's my undergrad. And I did absolutely nothing with it. I went straight into retail. Um, and I made sure that I stayed with like creative type retail jobs. So like Crate and Barrel, like because I knew like I like design
Mm-hmm.
and like interior design. So I was at Crate and Barrel. I worked for Apple. They're creative. Did some visual merchandising there. And I think once I hit 30, I had like a not a mental breakdown, but what's it called when you like reach a certain age?
Crisis.
Yes, midlife. It was a
Yeah.
midlife, but it was an early midlife crisis.
A
I
third
was
life
like,
crisis.
yeah. I was like, what am I doing with my life? Like I'm in retail, I'm not like I like it, but I'm not like loving it. Like this isn't my passion. So I went back to school, and I was like, okay, let's give interior design a whirl, because there's people who have careers as interior designers. Like it's, a path that you can take that's creative. So I went back to school. I took my whole major in interior design and architecture. And after graduating with that, and getting into like new jobs and taking pay cuts, interning and doing all the things, um, I still didn't feel it wasn't connecting to me yet, as much as like pottery and painting and actually like doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
Interior design is like 10% creativity and the rest of it's like paperwork and filing and managing
Yeah.
expectations and, it's
Yeah.
all that.
Normally there's one person who is doing a creative work and everyone else is kind of assisting
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
administrative minutia and
Right.
purchasing stuff and yeah.
Right. That's what it
Yeah.
is, running around
Running
crazy. So I'm
around.
like, okay, this isn't it either. But I will say while I was there, like I was in a nice position where I was um, around all of I was in the fabric library. That's what they call the place where they, source all of like the stones that they're going to use. So there's like bins of like all these stones and, you know, tiles, what color tile you're going to use for your backsplash and all
Mm-hmm.
these fabrics, what kind of fabric. So the designers will come to this room and like, pick through and scheme out their rooms. And so I was in a position where I was organizing and fixing that and keeping it neat and then meeting all the vendors who would come, who like own the fabric. I would meet them and they'll talk about their new color scheme they have for the next season and, try and clean out our bins, take out all the old stuff, put in the new stuff. So when I would see them take out the old stuff, I'm like, what are you going to do with all that old stuff? Like, can I have it? Like, I can like sew it together, like make pillows. I can, chop it up and do all these things. And so I just started collecting stuff, not really knowing what I was going to do with it. But another cool thing that I learned there was that since it was a high-end residential space, um, he would, the main designer, he would work with like artists who would make handmade furniture. Like all the furniture was like handmade. The wallpaper was hand painted. Or they would come to the house and do a mural, hand painted mural on the
Mm-hmm.
wall for the wall covering and hand woven textiles, So I was meeting the vendors for these companies and I was like, you're not like a vendor, like you're an artist. It's like, how many people are in the company? And I was like, really like, I started to get to know the people. They're like, oh, it's just me and my husband. And we contract some people to come work with us. I'm like, what? It's just you and your husband? I'm like, you guys are artists. Like, this is how you're doing it. So I just kind of changed my mindset and just kind of seeing like what the artist was doing to make a living out of, their
Mm-hmm.
art, out of their craft. They'll have a business name, a website, a line sheet of like all the products that they offer and like this is what we offer, this is what we do, here's some samples, hire us. And so I just took that same concept. It was just like, okay, like I'm going to have a business name. I'm going to make a website. I'm going to have some products to offer. And my whole thing, I started off with, collaging. I was taking all of this fabric and chopping it up and making wall art with it. That's where I started. But to bring pottery back into it, I was it was just out of a whim. I was cleaning the garage with my mom and I ran into all of my old pottery work from college. And I was just like, oh yeah, like I love pottery. Like I forgot about that. And like I know how to do like this thing. Like why, like how can I incorporate pottery with this fabric journey that I was doing? And I was like, well, I can adhere the fabric on there, or I can make holes and I can tie loops, tie the fabric on. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to have a list of products that I can do with, tying on the fabric or adhering the fabric somehow. And then I had a friend who was like, oh, like you do pottery. That's cool. Can you make me a planter? And I was like, no, I don't do planters. This is my list of things I do.
I'm niching down, girl.
Yeah. I'm like, this is what I do. I'm Sample HAUS. I do fabric stuff only. But I since it was my friend, I just made it for her. And I took a picture of it and I posted it on Instagram. And everybody went crazy, like, oh my God, you make planters. Because this was around the time when everyone was locked in the house and buying plants and decorating their homes. So the planters just took off.
I went
and
through
the
this
fabric
phase.
stuff just kind of, got left behind. So that's like the whole transition. And that's why a lot of people, they don't see too much fabric. They're like, they'll repost and share. They're like, oh, Diana, she puts fabric in her pots. And it's like my planters and there's no fabric in there. I'm like, no, like there's no fabric in there. Like you'll see it. So like, I'm, still working with that concept.
I'm sorry, do you have any photos of the pottery that you've done with the weaved fabric or like adhered fabric? Do you still have those?
There's some, I have the pictures. And then recently I started doing more fabric stuff with already pre-made pots like terracotta. So that's more recent, like a couple of weeks ago. You'll see that on my Instagram. And yeah, I did like an IG live with another artist and we were just crafting on like live. And I was like showing how I like cut up all the fabric and we were like adhering it to the pots. And so that was really fun.
I missed
so,
that one,
so
unfortunately.
Yeah.
I missed that one, unfortunately, but I would really love to have some pictures to put on a blog post because I post the blog post adjacent to every podcast episode, and I would really love to showcase where you started, where the whole idea of the Sample HAUS started with the pottery and fabrics. That would be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. But now at this point, like I still want to do more with fabric because there is still an issue with textile building up and it being an issue with, just with the world, like just all of this waste building up. So I still want to help out in that aspect. But right now, the pottery, just straight pottery is what's selling right now. And that's what's going to help me fund this bigger idea that I have to collect all of this all of this fabric and organize it and possibly like resell it to other artists that they can do stuff with and not just me,
So do you have, can you share that big idea or it's just forming right now? Do you know
the big idea was to have like a large warehouse where I can store all of the fabric because that's my issue right now. Like I'm literally running out of space because there's just so much fabric. But I want to, have you heard of Got Junk?
Yes.
Yeah. So I had visions of me having these like trucks, not like garbage trucks, but like these trucks that'll go out to all of these like workrooms where the people upholster stuff and get all of their scraps and go to showrooms where they're getting rid of their samples and collect and pretty much just give different firms bins, to just throw your stuff in here. We'll come pick up every week or something like that. Just create this whole system of just collecting all the stuff. And I have a place where I'm organizing it and creating little kits to possibly like resell or donate to different organizations who are like working with homeless, because there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
nonprofits that are like making blankets and stuff for like homeless or something for kids, just something. But there needs to be a system where they're going out and collecting all of this stuff, because they don't have time. The people, it's not their fault. Like, they don't have time to stop and deal with all of the waste, like, because
Yeah.
they have to make the product and move on to the next thing, so it needs to be like a middleman that's going there and collecting all the stuff.
This
So
is
yeah, that's the main idea.
This is very interesting. The whole thing, the whole time you were talking about your story, I was thinking, and I pretty much say the same thing in every episode with every artist I'm talking to. This is how interesting is that, how the universe is kicking your ass, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because how many artists are trying to get a proper job, and if they don't really want to get rid of the idea of working in some kind of creative field, they become architects or designers or graphic designers or something like that, or trying
Mm-hmm.
to come to some kind of a business that has something to do with creativity, like the home decor retail, or something. And then there's this nudging voice that, like, this is not where you need to be, this is not where you need to be. Get everything you can out of this experience and move on to your path, because your path is not here. So, and what is also interesting to me is that you launched on your path with the pottery. This is what you love to do. This is obviously growing fast. It's kind of, showing you from all the corners, like, Diana, this is where you need to be. This is your business. This is your creative outlet, and people respond to it. And yet there's something about those fabric samples that is still hovering over your head. And I am really curious to see how it's going to unveil and what you're going to do with it, because I'm thinking, and I'm just thinking, and listeners can take me up on this later on when you actually figure out that part of your business. I think it's not just going to be a middleman collecting scraps. You're probably going to figure out something really creative and unique with it.
Yeah. It's kind of like, it's huge, because I want it to be like, I see it being like global. It's a movement that I'm trying to create, because it just needs to be done, not because I'm trying to be different, trying to stand out. It's just something that just needs to be done and dealt with.
No, I'm totally with you on that. This is a huge deal. The waste of the fabric industries and everything, and the whole fast fashion thing, which I think is really. I'm trying to find the proper word for that. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
No, this is great that you are not only connecting with your personal creative calling, you're also thinking about your impact on the world, and like the bigger good that you are doing to make this world better than when you came here. So
yeah, it's crazy. It's big. It's definitely bigger than me. Like, I don't really have all of the words yet, but there's still this force that's like telling me to do this thing. Like, even though I'm like, I have no idea how I'm gonna do it. Like, here's the idea, here's the thought, but okay, like, it's for sure gonna be like a team of people is definitely needed. I can't do this by myself, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually can see how people would gather and volunteer for that. So this is the story. This is why Sample HAUS is called Sample HAUS, because you started by collecting the fabric samples from the vendors, the artisans who were working with designers. This is how you got into the pottery, which is, you started doing pottery and people started responding to it. So how long ago was that when you actually registered your business, and how did things go from there?
So I registered my business in 2019.
Right before pandemic.
Yeah. A year before pandemic. So this was just already something I was just planning on doing regardless. so I was, just just going through the whole motions. I opened up an Etsy shop. I was on Etsy, and um, I got introduced to, those art markets that you would go to and like shop from like local artists,
Mm-hmm.
like a market, not like a flea market, but an artist market. Um, I went to one of those near my house, Venice Beach, and I was just kind of observing. I would always, whenever I would go to like these markets, I would always think that they're like these bigger companies and they're not like normal people. I don't know if that makes sense, but I would always think that they're like bigger, something bigger than me. Like no way I can just like set up a table and just say I'm going to sell my stuff. And so when I started talking to these people and just seeing how normal, like these are like normal people like me, like you and me, just setting up shop and just selling stuff. And I'm just like, okay, this is it. Like, how come like no one tells you this in school? Like this is stuff that you can do for yourself. So I started signing up for all these different markets. And then I think like with everyone, if you have a lot of potters or potter listeners on your show, like you'll get to a point where you're working at a public studio. You're using their equipment to make your stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and you're on their firing schedule, like for the kiln. So they're going to just fire the stuff whenever it's full. You can't make them fire anything quicker than what they can. So if you have a date, like, okay, I want to do this market next month, I'm going to need to make, at least 50 things or something. And I need to have it done by this date so I can go. And usually at studios, they're just like, well, we can't make that date. Like, it's just going to be done whenever it's done. And so that's when
you're not fully in control of the schedule.
Yeah, you're not in control. So that's the next move is like, okay, I need to get a kiln so I can be in control of my things and when I need it to be ready. So that was just a whole catalytic movement for me, like doing the markets, seeing that I needed to control my products, and when it was going to be done. I got a studio space here in Hawthorne. My studio space is called Hawthorne Art Complex. So I'm in a huge warehouse with other artists, and we kind of like sublease a section within it. So my kiln is here on site, and I just started making a bunch of stuff and signing up for all of these markets and showing up. And then pandemic hit, and then everything got shut down. I'm just like,
no art fairs anymore.
Oh
yep.
no,
Yep.
yeah, no more art fairs. Everything's online. I'm like, okay, I still have my Etsy. Let's put stuff on Etsy, and then the sad thing about what happened, like with George Floyd and the whole Black Lives Matter movement, definitely like an eye opener for the world, which I'm it's so hard to put into words.
I know this is a very difficult topic because like it shouldn't have happened to open the world to anything.
Right. Because this stuff happens all the time. It happens all the time. Like Black men, Black women are killed all the time, every day, maybe. And just because it wasn't televised doesn't mean it wasn't unjust. But like I guess the silver lining, or I don't know how to say it, but for people to actually have a response and a movement to it, to feel that they need to be more active in talking about more Black-owned business and sharing more Black-owned businesses, because we're so shadowed, like overshadowed, like we're out here, like we've been out here. We're just not seen. Like we're not a part of the algorithm. We don't show up. The news doesn't talk about a lot of Black-owned businesses, so people just don't think it exists. But like with that whole movement, a lot of people were just sharing a lot of Black-owned businesses, which is great. I love that. That's the positive that came out of it, and all of the change. But but with that, that's how my business got highlighted. Who shared me? Who was it? It was East Fork. East Fork is like a pretty well known
Hmm.
like mass produced pottery business. And they shared me. They're like, well, we don't make planters, but we know someone who does. I don't even know how they found me. They probably found me on Etsy. They're probably just like searching for like Black owned businesses at that point. But they shared me, and like all of a sudden I started getting all these messages on my phone, like sell, 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 sell. Like everyone's like buying all the stuff on my Etsy shop, and
Wow.
all these followers started showing up on my Instagram. And I'm just like, what is going on? And so that's pretty much what happened. The big boom was in like March. And that's where everything just kind of took off. And I've just been making planters and everything since then. but but yeah, that's it. That's what happened
Oh, this is
with me.
definitely a bittersweet story
Mhm.
kind of thing. Let's take a short coffee break. Are you enjoying this episode? If you do, would you buy me a coffee? I would really appreciate it. The link is in the show notes and on our website, intheartscene.com. Thank you for your support. If you don't mind me asking, so you are representing a very interesting category. You are a woman artist and you're Black. So those are three like check boxes that, people are normally dismissed. Like artist is not the real
Mhm.
job. Being a
Mhm.
woman in the man's society or male dominated society is pretty hard. Even if
Mhm.
you're like, running your business successfully, you're still facing some challenges that man probably wouldn't in the normal day.
Mhm.
And being a Black woman is like kind of, squares it out.
Yeah.
So,
And being a Black woman potter, there's
yeah.
not a lot of Black potters out there as well.
So, uh, what does it mean for you, for your art, for you personally, and for your business on a day-to-day basis?
I mean, it means a lot to me. It keeps me going for sure, because it needs to be more of us out there showing other young Black women and males that they can do it. It is possible, and here are the steps to do it. And let me show you how I did it. So I do a lot of like I share a lot on my Instagram. I share a lot of other artists. I made a compilation uh, video with other Black female potters.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that also went viral, and um, I just make it my business to just keep sharing and helping other artists out there. So at this point, like there's no turning back. Like I have to keep going. Like even if I'm tired, like I'm exhausted. Like well, what keeps me going is just knowing that there's people out there who are like looking for me, like looking forward to like seeing me and seeing what new products I'm gonna come out with. And um yeah, just this is just the beginning. Like in my head, I just keep telling myself, like this is just the beginning. There's so much more that needs to be done. It needs to be seen.
This is absolutely amazing that you are not only modeling this, but also take it upon yourself to support others who are, following your steps on this journey. And I assume you're still facing some challenges every day, not only being exhausted and doing everything yourself, running a successful business, but I don't know. There must be challenges. I mean, I, I,
Oh yeah, there's always
I
challenges.
face misogyny quite often, and sometimes I don't even like realize that was it. And like a few days later, I like roll back into the situation, like, oh, this is why he said that,
Hmm.
So yeah, sometimes it's just tough.
Yeah, I get like certain comments of like, oh, not in these exact words, but the whole underlying meaning of the comment was like, oh, you're only popular because of the Black Lives Matter movement type of thing. But
So not fair.
yeah, it really isn't. But if I keep having to like tell myself like I am talented, like I'm here because of my talent and like in what I offer and what I bring to the table. And if I didn't start my business before then, like I wouldn't be here, so I had to start the whole thing is like just starting, like just start. It's what I like, just keep reminding myself, like, okay, at least I started to do something and I stood up for myself. And I had hesitations of, because I had a full-time job. I recently quit my job last April. I'm doing this full time now, but when I was balancing out full time in this job, like during 2020, I kept thinking like, can I quit my job and go into this full time? Okay, let's wait until 2021 to see if people are still here. Like, is this just a trend? Like, are Black people just trending right now? Like, are they still gonna, be here to stay? And so next year, like 2021 comes along, okay, they're still here. Okay, February, okay, they're still here. Okay, it's just Black History Month. Okay, March, are they still gonna be here? Like, so I'm just like keep like hesitating, keep doubting myself. Like, I'm like, okay, April, okay, they're still here. Okay, let's quit our job. Let's do this. They're still here. Like, it's not just because of I'm Black or the whole movement. It's because they're here because they actually like my craft. Like, I actually make things that they love, or I bring them joy or whatever. So I'm like, okay, like I've proven to myself, like this is what it is. So let's just keep going.
No, I can tell that Sample HAUS is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. You started popping up in my Instagram feed, I think about a year ago. And I was like, what? I just love that. And I started following you. And I started the podcast back in January 2021, and I was so like little, the beginning, and I was so intimidated. I was like, well, Diana is so well famous, and she's probably not going to even talk to me.
That's crazy to me, like to hear people like say that. And I'm just like, I'm just a little Black girl from Hawthorne. Like, I'm no one special, but it's crazy. It's crazy to believe that the impact that you can have on people just by what you do and what you bring. So that's what keeps me going. I love that.
That's great. That's great. So when I started seeing you on my Instagram feed, I was amazed not only by the work you were doing, which is absolutely stunning, but also by the confidence. Like, I am still intimidated by, turning on my camera and doing freaking reels. You are so confident. You are like going like full force, sitting in front of your wheel. And then, it brings me back to the Ghost movie. Remember?
Yeah.
When she was doing this whole thing, kind of dancing at her pottery wheel. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know that, this is also something interesting for other artists, because I know artists who are struggling with that whole public exposure, like marketing themselves, etc., etc. It seems to be coming so naturally to you.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because believe it or not, I am introverted. And a lot of people don't believe me. I'm so like shy. And it was when I first did the whole like flipping the camera and talking to the screen. Like, I still have that recording. And I think I shared it on one of my reels just to like show like all of my struggles. But I was like, hi, Instagram fan, this is, and I just like stopped and I just like got upset. But like, the more, like, it's with everything, the more you do it, and show up, the easier it'll get. And I know that like people are just like, whatever, but it's true. Like, you just have to show up. And the whole thing, like with Instagram and the whole switch, like ever since 2020, I've noticed I'm just on my phone more. And that's the whole movement of Instagram now. Like, they just want people, now that people are like locked up in their homes, they've noticed that when people were on Instagram, they were sharing more, talking to each other more, buying more stuff. So they want people to stay on the platform. So, and to be social. So it's called social media, to be social. So you can't just post pictures and expect to grow a following just based on pictures. You have to show yourself. You got to
communicate.
Be social.
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing. So you have to, I've noticed that people buy from people. They don't buy from nowadays. People don't buy from like just big brand stores or just buy products. They want to know the people behind it, if it's a small business especially. So you have to show up. And I noticed that once I realized that, like not last year, in 2020, once I saw all the swarm of people coming and like looking at me now, and I'm just like, oh, like now they're here. I have to entertain them now. So now I need to do something to keep them here. And so like, sometimes like when I'm throwing, I'm like, okay, let's just point the camera, let's just record. And I remember like one day it was like late at night and I was like too shy to like show my face. It was just like my hands in the clay, hands in clay. And I'm like, okay, let's just do one and just show the face and like, but I gotta be doing something like I'm always like jamming out to music and like if people just saw me like without the camera, I'm singing and I'm doing all of these things without the camera on. I'm like, I think people need to see this because like this is what I do like when the camera isn't on. So let's just record ourselves doing it. And so I messed up a lot of times. And I'm always like, you don't see all the mess ups, okay, I look stupid. I'm looking retarded, restart. And then I ran out of clay. I only had one ball of clay left. And I'm like, okay, we got to hit it from the beginning to end. And because this is the last clay you have, and you have to go to sleep because you have to go to work in the morning. And so I just got into like this diva mode. I don't know what came over me, but I was just like, we're just going to be confident. We're just going to do it. And this is it. And so I hit record, boop, did it like straight from beginning to end, didn't mess up. And I was like, oh, that wasn't bad. So like now I just have that whole mindset whenever I record myself to do the videos. It's like, this is it. One shot. You don't have time to keep hitting stop and redoing. You just got to keep going. So that's how I keep doing it. And then once the video stops, I go home and curl up into a little ball because I'm exhausted. Like, I've done too much smiling, too much singing on camera. I'm like, okay, now it's time to curl up in a ball and be introverted again.
This is awesome. So it's practically the same thing as doing art. Like you cannot give up if something like you were trying a new medium and it doesn't go well from the first time. You just need to keep at it. Yeah. All right. Well, everybody who is listening, who is struggling with it, this is a tip from Diana, and I am behind it full force. I'm going to do that. I'm not. Still not that confident, but I'm trying to push myself forward.
Yeah. Just do it. Just hit record and just record yourself. Something's good is going to come out of it. You just keep scrolling through and be like, oh, that's a good one. Cut it, post it.
Yeah. And I think most of the times we are ourselves worst judges. Like people are not judging us as bad as we do. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
And you have to remember, like some people like seeing the awkwardness and the mess ups because they see themselves in you, and that also helps too.
Exactly.
So you don't have to be perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm not trying to show like perfect things. Like I show my bloopers too. So
trust me, it all looks perfect. when I look at it, it all looks perfect.
I'll show more bloopers. I have tons of them.
Maybe I'll make a collection of your bloopers and put it in a blog post for everyone to see.
Yes, I have some. I have some clips for sure.
Okay, cool, got it. All right, so I want to get back a little bit to your first comment when you said that pottery is not the only thing you're doing now. You're doing many different things. Can you talk a little bit about that and what are the things you're doing and also how people can find you except for Instagram? I know that you are now in multiple places where people can buy your work.
Yeah. So right now I've been, my whole like New Year's resolution is to get out more and be more, to deal more with my community. Because right now, since I'm on social, since all the markets pretty much closed down, I haven't been doing any more markets. So I don't know anyone like locally. I feel like I don't have a good local presence. All of my customers are on the East Coast. So I'm trying to show up more locally, like doing workshops at different studios. I want to offer classes. So I want to start teaching some people. I've been getting a lot of messages like, oh, do you teach? So I'm trying to like clean up my studio so I could get a couple more wheels in here so I can offer classes.
That was actually one of my questions for the future. If you're doing classes, I'm going to drive from San Diego and take a class. Yes. I always wanted to try pottery, and I was like, yeah,
Yes.
where can I do it? There was a community college nearby that was doing it, but they're closed right now as well. Their art studio and their pottery studio is completely shut down. So yeah, once you
Mhm.
start doing it, I'll come from San Diego.
See, that's the thing. Like everyone wants to like connect in real life. So I'm like, okay, I need to like set that up so it's possible. Another thing I'm doing, have you heard of NCECA?
No,
It
what is
stands
that?
for National Ceramic Educational, whatever. There are all the letters stand for something. Ceramic, it's a ceramic conference and it
Okay.
happens every year. They move it around to different states and pretty much it's a place where all the potters come together and all of the vendors that we use, like all the equipment or ceramic wheel, all the paints and glazes, all the people they come and they're like, they're showing their new products, giving demos, teaching. Um, and I've always wanted to go. Ever since like I started back into the business like in 2019, I always wanted to go just so I can just like network and meet other potters. But in the back of my head, I always knew like, am I gonna be the only Black person there? Like I always thought like, but it always stopped me from going, just knowing that I'm probably gonna be alone. Because in this whole like pottery network, all the other Black potters felt the same way too. Like it wasn't just me. Um, but ever since 2020 and we got exposed to one another, like we didn't even know that we all existed. So we all kind of like came together. So a lot of the Black potters, we all like know each other because we all communicate like off Instagram. We have like our own little website that we kind of communicate on. And I started asking them like, "Are you going to go to NCECA? Are you going to go to this conference?" And a lot of them, they were like, "Oh, I don't know. It's too expensive or it's too far." So like the tickets to go are like $300 to $400 to go. It's a
Wow.
4-day event. So if you're gonna fly, you gotta pay for your flight. You got to pay for your hotel stay, or wherever you're gonna stay for 4 days or 3 days, however long you're gonna stay. So it can get very expensive. So what I'm doing
Is
is
it is
I'm
it
raising
to
money.
visit? Is it to visit or is it to have a table at the conference? Is
You can either, I mean, if you have a table, most likely you probably got your ticket comped.
uh-huh.
So if you're going to be like in the event, most likely you have a free ticket, but you still have to pay for hotel stay and
Maybe
everything else.
maybe you can guys collaborate and go as a collective.
Yeah, so that's what I'm doing. So
Oh, okay.
I started like a whole like fundraiser. So I
Uh-huh.
brought like an Airbnb that like holds like 12 people. So that house is full and I've been raising money. So so if anyone wants to contribute to bringing more colored potters to NCECA, I do have there's a PayPal account
Hmm.
if you want to help and donate to that cause. The PayPal account is at Cabo Clay, and Cabo is spelled Kaabo and then CLAY, and that's a PayPal account that you can just um, donate directly to.
Hmm.
There's also T-shirts that was designed by another Black potter named Delvin Good. He designed all these nice T-shirts. People can buy T-shirts, and all the proceeds will go to that. And then also, I'm getting a bunch of potters together to donate pots, and we're gonna have like this huge pottery sale February 12th. That's a Saturday. Um, and that's all races, like everyone's coming together and just like donating stuff. And so that sale is gonna
Okay.
all the proceeds to that is gonna go.
When is the conference?
The conference is in March.
In
It's March
March.
16th
Okay.
to like the 20th. That's pretty much what I'm doing and just continuing to make my work. Um what else? I'm at West Down as well. So I have a West
Oh, that's
Down
cool.
deal. So I do have some work there that I don't offer on my website. So if you want to get like some specific colors like gray and like blush, I don't do a lot of like gray and pink things on my site. So yeah, you can get that at West Down.
Did they reach out to you or did you pitch them or how
They reached out to me. They
uh-huh.
reached out to me at the end of 2020. So like around November. But since I was like crazy busy during that time, I haven't been looking at my email and I didn't see it until like
Uh-oh.
March. March of
Uh-oh.
2021. I'm just like, oh my God, like they're reaching out to me. So lesson learned, check your email, guys. But yeah, I responded as soon as I saw the email, and they immediately responded back. They're like, "Oh my God, we thought you didn't want to work with us." I'm like, "I do want to work with you." So, so we got that going, up and running.
Cool. And is it in West Elm everywhere, or is it like a local chain?
It's online. It's online.
Oh,
So
it's
it's
online.
not like
Okay.
in a physical store. So yeah, it's online.
Okay.
So
So
you just search for Sample House and I should come up.
we will also make sure that we put the link for it.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone knows. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a great story. That's a
yeah.
Everything from not going to be a potter to missing an email from West Elm.
Oh my gosh.
Amazing. Yeah.
If it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
Yeah, and this is so interesting that comes up in every single conversation I have on this podcast. I just had an interview. I was talking to an artist who like did not know they're going to be an artist until like in college. They just didn't know what they're going to do. They needed some extra credits, and they signed up for an art class. And absolutely felt like they're on a different planet because people were talking like it's a different language. For someone who didn't even hold the pencil in their hands, right?
Yeah.
Ever, like being among the people who were talking about perspective and sketches and different mediums and different brands of paper and, all that kind of stuff. So scary and intimidating. And then all of a sudden, it's just naturally comes out as, a love of their life. And to the point that, again, they're switching the major in the college and going all the way through MFA. Yeah. So it's amazing how things are turning in the way, like if you just trust the process, like you will get where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's so like cliche, but it's so true.
Yeah, it is true. It proves itself in every single story and in like, pretty much with every artist I have communicated, it's kind of like that. And it doesn't happen overnight. And sometimes it does seem to people like, I found you on Instagram and you were already famous. Like, oh, okay, Diana is not going to talk to me because she's all accomplished already. And I'm here with my startup podcast. But yeah, if you look at the journey, it started way, way, way before, and all the work that you have put in there and all the decisions you have made and all the experience that you have acquired, it's all not for nothing. And even sometimes when it feels like you're not doing what you were supposed to be doing, if you just trust the universe, you will pivot in the right direction.
Yeah.
So I feel like, yeah.
Exactly. I love it. Well said.
Thank you. Alrighty. We are at the top of the hour. I am so grateful for you to be here. Happy birthday again to you and to Sample House.
Thank you so much.
I was rehearsing in my head. We were supposed to be recording yesterday on February 1st. And I was like, that would be such a cool thing to start the episode. Like, happy birthday, Diana. But
I know. It was crazy. It was a crazy day.
I'm glad you had a good day.
From everybody, and I wanted to like get some stuff shipped out and then just enjoy the rest of the day. So yeah. But we did it today.
Yay. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. And
yes, no problem. Thank you.
And thank you so much for sharing your story. It's amazing. And thank you again for being a model and a supporter for everyone who is following your steps, who is a beginner artist, who is doubting themselves, who are, especially in the Black community, this is something that, has had to be done. Sorry, English is my second language, so I'm not sure if that's the right way to say that.
No, yeah, it
is. Without any tragedies that had happened in the past few years, or at least those tragedies that had a public exposure. It just shouldn't have. But since we have that momentum going, I'm so glad that you are there and you are keeping that momentum and helping other people. That's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Thanks for having me.
Right. And you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you again in the art scene.
I shall. Thank you.